Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of my mini-series on All the Mods 10. In this episode, we're going to be diving into the creative chapter of this mod pack, and I actually did not have everything that I needed to make the stars. I forgot that getting the Patrick star could be a little bit difficult, as well as this awakened unobtainium vibranium block. So the bulk of this episode is going to be me kind of explaining. This might be the closest thing to tutorial that you've gotten in this series so far, but it'll be me explaining how to set up these multi-blocks and in what order that you should do it in. As I went, I tried to take as many, meticulous notes as I could here. I started figuring out what I needed, and then I just put it on the board behind me. So what I'll do here is try to show you step by step how to start diving into these Forbidden and Arcanus multi-blocks. So before we're able to craft our first stars, we actually need a Runic Crucible. I prefer having 3 of these. We're going to need a Runic Star Altar and the automatic Hephaestus Forge. So one thing I found pretty important, and I did do a little bit of research on this concerning the Maledictus Pact. This is an extremely rare enchanter relic. I got this somehow on my first playthrough. I could not find it on this playthrough. So if you are able to get the Maledictus Pact, you can actually skip some of the Runic Crucible portions of this and basically get your stars right off the rip. In this version, or in this playthrough, I wasn't lucky. I could not find this anywhere, and I actually had to use the automatic Hephaestus Forge setup here. So if you can find this, you can actually build the Star Forge first, and you can skip the Runic Crucibles. But if you can't find it, you're going to have to do it the way I did it in this playthrough. And just bear in mind that the loot bag here needs to be the exact description here. So this loot bag is from the Lunar Monstrosity. If the loot bag that you're trying on the recipe does not have this description in it, you're not going to be able to do this craft. So just make sure you're using the right item here. Now, between episodes, I spent a lot of time at this Hephaestus Forge. This is pretty tedious and it's pretty annoying. I'm not sure if there's another way to do it, but I needed to make a lot of quantum injectors. I think you need like 10 to 20 of them, maybe around 15 for all these multi-blocks. They are pretty heavily utilized. It's not a hard craft. The problem is that the requirement for Oriel is 5,000. So you can only get about 4 of these, I believe, before you need to replace all of your pedestals and then, fill this whole thing back up. So my recommendation is just, suck it up and make a lot of these things. The blood is not so bad. You use the piglich to get that. Souls are pretty easy. Experience is pretty easy with the X-Petrified Orbs. Basically, the Quantum Injector, just make a lot of them, because if you don't, you're going to have to keep finding that you're going to come back to this thing to craft more and more and more of them. Also, throughout this process, I realized that you can actually speed up the Hephaestus Forge to be able to absorb the souls a lot faster. So you see how they're just kind of disappearing. I'm just all about trying to save time. And if that can save me a few seconds, then I'm definitely going to use it. So you saw how fast those souls got in there when I used the time wand on the forge. All right. So now, assuming you have a whole bunch of these, we're going to go ahead and start making our Runic Crucibles first. And I had other plans, but I just decided that I was just going to put all of the multi-blocks right up here. I might spruce this up a little bit, but honestly, I'm probably mostly done with the aesthetic building. But yeah, this is kind of what I have going on here. And obviously this is quite a bit of progress, but I'm going to break it down hopefully in an easy, understandable way so that you kind of know exactly how to progress through all of this. So if the goal here is to make the Runic Star Altar, the first things you're going to have to start with are the Runic Crucibles. And that is because in order to make the Star Altar, you are going to need 2 fluids, liquid Oriel and liquid souls. Both of these processes happen inside the Runic Crucible. Just remember, I'm not sure if they're going to get rid of this tab or not. This is a little bit confusing because it says required just 1,000 source. I don't think this recipe is valid at all. I think you have to use the liquefied source from Starbunkomania, along with some water and some arcane crystals, and that will give you liquid Oreo. Now, these are already set up, so let me just kind of quickly show you how this works, because my Runic Enchanter is not finished. What you want to do is you want to craft right? So in this case, the Runic Crucible, we're going to craft this inside of the Hephaestus Forge. So there's the quantum injectors that you're going to need. You do need quite a bit of Auriel. All their other requirements are not really that bad. You'll need your Z Logic controllers. We talked about how to do that. So go ahead and craft yourself a Runic Crucible and then place it wherever you want. And then once you place it down, you can take a wrench from Modern Industrialization and go ahead and put that in your offhand, and it will show you exactly how to build the whole multi-block. So in this example, I actually don't have all of the required enchanting pieces to make this yet. I'm kind of dreading this. It's not too bad, but it's a little annoying. And so basically you just drop the blocks wherever you need them to go. And if you put a block in the wrong spot, thankfully, it will have a little like red error message there. As far as the stairs go, I don't believe the stairs need to be in any specific configuration. When you initially place down the multi-block, it kind of looks like the stairs are all facing one direction. It doesn't really matter, but if you kind of want it to look, nice and clean, you can kind of make your nice little edges like this. So yeah, once you make these multi-blocks, just put this wrench in your hand and it will show you exactly where to put everything. And then once you have all the pieces in the right spot, it will tell you that the shape is valid and the status is active. The quantum injectors up there are floating because when you put these down and just smack them, they, make a little animation, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it actually matters one way or the other, but it's kind of cool to see it like this. All right, so once we have a valid shape, now we are actually going to need to add hatches to these items so that we can get items, liquid, and power in and out of them. And that's where the steel hatches are going to serve you just fine. So these are all very easy recipes. I think I looked at these in a prior video at one point, but all the steel hatches are easy. So you're going to need a fluid output and a fluid input, and then you're going to need an item output and an item input, and then you're going to need a power hatch, an energy hatch. But the base versions, the steel ones, are just fine for the initial setup for these blocks here. You can see there's a lot of hatches over here. I believe the only ones that actually work are these ones right here that kind of have this look to them. Another issue you're going to bump into is that there is only one hatch that works, and that is a runic energy hatch, which is much more complicated to make than the steel versions. So this is the recipe for that. You don't need a lot of requirements down here, but you will need to make, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you only go the route of doing one of these, whatever they're called, Runic Crucibles, you only need like 4 of them. But I will recommend that you just make 6 of these right off the bat. One of the things you're going to need to make is an item from Actually Editions called the laser relays, and there's 3 different forms of them. If you're not sure how this works, basically you're just going to make an atomic reconstructor, give it some power, put like a pressure plate in front of it, and then if you hit this with a redstone torch, you're going to change it from pulse to deactivation. So I'm going to change it to pulse, and then I'm going to go ahead and craft some of these laser arrays. If I could toss them in the right spot, toss, and then they turn into fluid laser arrays. And then you're also going to need to toss the fluid ones down, and those are going to turn into item laser relays. So we're going to need all 3 of these. There's no reason to automate this. Just make a stack or 2 of these things and, get a few of each of them in your system, and you're going to be fine. They're not that heavily used. So once you have all your lasers, use them to make at minimum 4 runic energy hatches, and probably at maximum 6 of them. I made 6. All right, so once you have all the required hatches, if you go ahead and put them in your hand, it will tell you where all of the valid spaces on each multi-block are for these hatches. So that's going to vary from multi-block to multi-block. In some cases, I don't know why that's not showing up. These are showing up here. And then in this multi-block, you have to put stuff in like through the bottom. That's the enchanter. We haven't got to that yet. But essentially, you're going to want to follow the recipes for these things. So this one's going to require 2 fluid input hatches because you can't put them both into the same hatch. So one for liquefied source, one for water, and you're going to want an item input hatch here, right? And then you're going to want a fluid output hatch plus an energy hatch. Hopefully that's, you can understand that. So here I'm exporting my unrefined liquid souls into a steel fluid input hatch, which holds 16 buckets. You can see that if you mouse over it. Next, my liquefied source is going into the steel fluid input hatch here. Over here, I have my souls always being filled up inside the input hatch for items. And then my output hatch is, pulling the fluids into my system. And finally, over here, I have my runic energy input hatch, and I just have a nitro gate slapped on that. And that's fine. The system works as it should. For the liquid aerial, you're going to need the same thing: liquefied source, water, arcane crystals, and a fluid output hatch. So 2 fluid input hatches, 1 item input hatch, a fluid output hatch, and then you're going to need the energy hatch. And you can see this is making the stuff inside of here. This is actually hogging all the liquefied source. That's why that's not working. But same deal. Inside, fluid input hatch, another fluid input hatch with water. I got my arcane crystals going in there, and then I have my final product coming out into the system. So these, you're going to need at least 2 to be able to get going with the automatic Hephaestus forge, which is the next block. Quickly, before we jump over there, I just want to show you that I have the third one to make obsidian steel. So I have a pattern provider on here so that I can craft this stuff on demand. So that's going to use, steel. Where's the recipe? Runic Crucible. So I need 2 fluid input hatches. I need 2 item input hatches. Actually, I might be able to do it in 1, I think. And then I need an item output hatch for the craft. So this is, you can see it working inside of here. This is making obsidian steel for me. And this is going to be required down the line. I can't find it right now, but we're going to need this for some other stuff. All right, so we have our liquid Oriole, we have our liquid souls. Now we should have all of the requirements to build the Hephaestus forge and also start automating it. So once you build your Hephaestus forge, which this is the recipe, I think a long time ago I recommended, if you didn't watch that video, that you make 3 of these, early on as you're tiering up your Hephaestus forge, make 3 of them because you will need them. And I'm finally putting it to use, all these hours later here. But once you have this inside of the forge, you're going to need 4 fluids. And we have all those fluids at this point. We've automated blood with bees. We have plenty of essence from our mod farms. And we have our liquid souls and liquid Oriole. Also note here that for each recipe, it's not just, there's actually a fluid requirement over here. So 10,000 or 10 buckets of essence, 1,000 souls, 25,000 MB of blood, but like this one requires 100,000 liquid Oriole. So depending on the craft, you're going to actually, you might have to upgrade your hatches. Yeah, I upgraded this to runic. Actually, that's just because I automated it. I think the steel were still fine for this at the beginning, and I believe you can add multiple hatches if you can't make the runic ones yet. But yeah, so we're going to need 4 fluids inside of here. So I have 1 fluid input hatch here with souls, 1 here with Oriole, 1 here with blood, and then the next one here with essence. I have my runic energy input hatch with my nitro gate. I believe I added another one of those somewhere else. I have my steel item output hatch, right? So you don't need anything more than steel for output hatches. That's going to bring the craft back into my system. And then over here, I have all of my recipes automated. And I don't think I mentioned it yet, but the reason why we have to make all of this stuff is that we need the Pact Star. And the Pact Star requires a whole bunch of different, concrete and concrete powders inside of the Runic Star altar in order for us to make this. The easiest way to program this pattern, just hover over, select R, click on the Runic Star altar pattern, make sure you have the correct one, which is the one in the bottom here, and then just shift right click, and that's going to put everything inside of there, and then you can just build patterns for whatever you're missing after the fact. Initially, what I had to do with this, because I hadn't automated the hatches yet, I only had access to steel. I had 3 steel input hatches, and then I had my pattern provider hooked up to a chest with some pipes going into each of the 3 different input hatches, so I could get enough items into this thing to jumpstart the craft. And then once I was able to automate the rest of the Hephaestus forge, then I crafted 1 runic item input hatch, and that can fit all the items required for any craft. So once I set all this stuff up, I was now ready to craft the Runic Star altar. And again, if you got lucky, you don't have to do any of the fluids first. And this is actually the much easier way to get to this. But I didn't have to do it the easier way. I had to do it the hard way. And so I was able to craft my Runic Star altar, which requires a massive amount of Oriole, a lot of souls, 1,000,000 blood, and a bunch of EXP juice. So we crafted that. and then we built the multi-block. So at this point, we're actually going to hit another snag, and that is because there's also a power requirement for these crafts, right? So you can see up here, some recipes are lower, some recipes are higher. Um, but if you have everything set up right and you don't think it's working or it isn't working, you're probably missing some uprates here. Now, you can do the modular machinery or modern industrialization route for this, or you can do the Forbidden and Arcanus route. I would recommend this. I mean, if you want to, if you know, play the hard mode, by all means, go for it. But yeah, crafting up some of these Runic Attuned Arcane crystals is, again, it's a little bit of a pain. That's why I spent so much time at the Hephaestus Forge. It doesn't require nearly as much of this stuff down here. So basically, I just, filled up my forge with everything and then used my clickers to go ahead and make these. But these are going to be able to upgrade your machine's energy capacity. And then you can just throw them inside of your, thing here so that you can basically complete the craft. Now, 17, I think, is way too many. But yeah, you're going to need some of these to make this work, and it's not immediately clear that you need them. But in order to make this, we're going to need the Sentient Ender. So what I did in this playthrough is actually probably easier than what I did in the last one. I just got the witch spawn egg and went around and collected myself a whole bunch of filled soul vials with the witch inside of them. And this is not a difficult craft here. Then I set up a soul binder. So this is kind of how I have it set up here. I have exporting essence, ender resonators, and filled witch soul vials. So essentially, yeah, I don't have any patterns put in there because that was a waste of time. Essentially, as soon as I put these soul vials inside of here, this machine is going to start whirring up and it's going to make me all of my sentient enders. So this is honestly, this is a super easy way to do it. Just go ahead and, either do what I did, go to a pyramid, go to the other, or make a spawner, get a bunch of these witch vials. You don't really need that many. All right, so I'm following my notes here. At this point, I figured out that I think I needed more of these, more of the fluid inside of my automatic Hephaestus forge so that I could do bigger crafts. So I made 4 runic fluid input hatches. And at this point, since my Hephaestus forge is already automated, I have all my fluids. Now I can use this to start these crafts, and I no longer need to use the regular Hephaestus forge to do this. So this is where the fluid laser arrays are going to come in handy. And you do not need runic fluid output hatches, right? The hardest part about this are these quantum injectors. Again, that's why I recommended that you make so many, is because you actually do need a bunch more for these input hatches. So now, instead of being able to hold just 16 buckets, all of these input hatches can hold quite a bit. And again, you're going to kind of need a lot of blood for some of these crafts. So this is important to have. Now that I have all of this set up and I got all of my hatches and that's all automated, I am ready to keep plugging away at this star. So now at this point, we're ready to make our Patrick stars. We got these going. We got the Hephaestus Forge. You built the star altar. Actually, I need to let you know that inside of these Utrum jars, you do need to put a tiny amount of liquid Oriole. If you don't have any in your system, you can craft them with potions of regeneration. You get them from quests, though, so save the ones from the quest and then just put them inside of these Utrum jars. And, if you can't complete the Star Forge or the Star Altar craft, it's probably because you don't have filled Utrum jars. And again, this is pretty straightforward, just a little tedious getting all of this stuff set up. So program your star, put a pattern provider on your runic item input hatch, and then you will be able to make Patrick stars on demand. And you can see by these little, purple letters here, it's going ahead and making us some Patrick stars. And when you mouse over it, you can kind of tell that all those ingredients are inside of here. So to craft this item, we are going to need Awakened Supremium gemstones, which this and this, the essence and the gem, are being produced by our bee. So that's, I forgot that we needed this later on. So the bee is probably necessary. We need the unobtainium vibranium alloy, which that's easy. We did that a while ago. The hard part is the unbreaking book, right? So we need a whole bunch of unbreaking books. And if we want to automate the stars, we're going to need to find a way to make a bunch of these. So we actually have a couple options here. We have a bunch, really. If we want full automation, this recipe and the Runic Enchanter recipe are probably going to be the way to go. I didn't do it this way last time, but I think I might because I have all the automation set up for Ars Nouveau. But you will need unbreaking ones to build this thing. You're going to need 4 of them for every craft, essentially. So you can do it with the Runic Enchanter. This recipe is quite a bit more complicated because in order to make just an Unbreaking 1, you're going to need, a little bit of Liquefied Source, some experience, these items, and then you're going to need this. You're going to need the Inferium Enchanting Base. And to craft the Inferium Enchanting Base, this is another Runic Enchanter recipe. And none of this is hard, right? But it just adds steps to this. So initially, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the printer from Create, which is kind of unconventional, but it actually works great. So basically, this is all I did was I have a printer and then I have an export bus filling it with essence from the back. I have a depot on the bottom, and then I took an unbreaking book from my big, thing of chests here, and you can search for stuff and then double click in your search bar to find unbreaking. And then like if you find one here, so there's unbreaking 1 on this book, then you can take it to an enchantment extractor, and then we'll go ahead and put that in there, and that's going to give us unbreaking 1. You can also just craft this stuff up. So if you don't have it on hand, these are actually really easy crafts. So just put that in the filter over there, then just go ahead and put a bunch of books down, and then we're going to accelerate this. Right? And it's just going to make a ton of books for you, whatever the filter is set for up there. And you can see I have 240 of these already queued up. Should be plenty for now until I go to full automation. And you'll also notice that I have 162 mending books, and I'll probably automate that the same way. But the mending books are going to be used for the infused Patrick Star, which is like the next level of star automation with all of these shards. That's going to be required with this recipe here, which is ultimately actually what we're working towards. So I knew that we were going to need some mending books, so I kind of just made them at the same time. And there we go. Look how many we got. It's a mess. When you program this recipe, just make sure that it is actually using your unbreaking books in order to make this item here. So we're going to do Awakened Unobtainium. We'll just make 10. This is the craft. These take a little while. Because those disillusion chambers are pretty slow. But this is going to start right up, and it's going to start crafting us some of these blocks. And after we get this, we have everything we need. And man, I have been waiting for this moment for quite a while. I attached a storage bus on the bottom of this chest here with a very low priority. And now we are going to start crafting this stuff right online here. 18 improbability devices. Some of the NBT is going to screw with a couple of these recipes, so it's only saying that I have 4 of these available, when in fact I have quite a few. They just have different power levels. So I'll just go ahead and I'll manually make these. There's another quest gate for completion here. I think stabilized metal will cause me to complete the Oblivion Shard. So that's that. Next, we need 18 dimensional seeds. There we go. 18 Philosopher's Fuels. Another one done. 18 Nexium emitters. All set. Pulsating black holes. Done. The dragon souls are going to be the other recipe that's going to give me a problem. So I'll just make them manually. There we go. And finally, some Withers compasses. And there we go. Wither Builder and the Withers Compass. Patrick Star seems to be gated behind some concrete recipes. Let's see if this works. Yep, there we go. Now we got our Patrick Star. And it looks like the last thing we're missing is the Runic Star Altar. I just need to put 40 of these in my inventory. Runic Star Altar complete. Let's go ahead and grab some juicy quest rewards. So yeah, that should be it. Now we just need to make an ATM Star. I don't know if anybody caught that earlier, but I had the star pattern in the Hephaestus Forge. That's why it didn't work on the first time I tried to craft it. So let's go ahead and cancel this. We're going to cancel that and go ahead and try to make this baby. Yes, it's working. We are about to have all 18 ATM Stars. Let's go ahead and speed this guy up. Bam. We did it, boys. We got a star. Now let's queue up 17 more. There they are. 17 ATM Stars complete. Let's go. Now go ahead and find yourself a nice warm ocean fishing spot. Get yourself a nice juicy fishing rod. I actually didn't craft this. This was a quest reward, but I did put Luck of the Sea and Lure on it. Those are pretty easy enchants to make. And fish yourself up to Patrick Bees. I never noticed this before. This is a wild biome. Once we have our Patrick Bees, we're going to put one of them in there. I'm not going to upgrade him quite yet. We're going to have 2 ATM star blocks, right? So now we have a Starry Bee. we're going to need to put this guy in there, and then we're going to accelerate this guy. So let's look at this real quick. So we have 12 Patrick Stars. I programmed the comb recipe. Oops. We're going to speed this up. And hopefully the Patrick Stars will start loading right on in. Now, I don't plan on making like a billion stars. This is basically going to be over after I kind of set up full automation. But if you want to keep playing, I would definitely recommend that you just go ahead and make a whole bunch of Patrick Stars just kind of right off the rip. That way you can skip the whole Runic Star Altar crafting portion of this, and it just speeds up the craft in general. On my first playthrough, I just let this run for a while I was working on other things, and I got like 10,000 Patrick Stars and never needed to use this recipe. All right, so let's go ahead and take this guy out of the hive. Now he's in our system. We're going to put him there. We're going to get our other ATM star block. We're going to put this bee down, feed him the star block, capture him, and now we are on our way towards basically the end. Where is this guy? Starry Bee. There we go. I'll just need to boost up his productivity a bit, but at this point, we are ready to go into the next phase. Actually, I forgot you could just put Patrick B inside of here, and he can still make Patrick Stars. However, we will need to start extracting some genes so that we can make more Starry Bees. And initially, this takes very long to set up, so I'm going to put some Pokies in there. I just need to let this run and continue accelerating it in order to get some more Starry Bees so that I can start getting the ATM Stars shards. And there they are. And we have completed this quest. And so now the next episode or so is going to be focused on getting all 5 of these star parts crafted. So I'm going to add these to my recipe list. This one's going to require the soul binding crystal. This is a pretty difficult one. Oh, no, I did this already. So I just need to program this in the Hephaestus forge. That shouldn't be too difficult. This fragment, not difficult at all. One of these is hard. The sea prism. I have turtle scuttle. Actually, I got turtle essence from a quest, so I got lucky with that one. But I have all that stuff there. And then we got the smelter prisms, which I believe we're good with. Yeah, that's easy. We've automated that. And then, yeah, the whirlwind prisms. So none of these are super complicated. I believe I have all my phantom membranes, and I have the bats already going in my Ars Nouveau setup. Honestly, we may only be 1 episode away from finishing this. The last hard thing, I guess, is the lens of the killer. And we looked into that last episode. Ooh, sharpness. All right, I got to get sharpness 5. So these enchanting books I'm going to have to solve in the Runic Enchanter, so I'll have to build that up. And then this lens of certain death. This is what we looked at in the last episode, where we kind of need to run all of these lenses through atomic reconstructors to get this. And our chest is empty, and I have no idea why I still have all 17 rainbow coal. I guess maybe the recipe just reuses it, so you only need 1 rainbow coal. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. And that's going to do it, guys, for this episode. Like I said, I think we're only 1 away, so let's see what happens. And we'll see you in the next one. Hope you learned something. Stay poised as always.